The second high-level impact, Mr. President, is getting conservation to drive peace and conflict resolution in northern Kenya. In northern Kenya, peace and security is quite elusive for many reasons. One is because of illegal firearms. Secondly, it's just because of the nature of the mistrust among our ethnic communities. And thirdly, also because of the natural resources, pasture, water for our cattle. And so we've managed to get the conservation to drive peace and conflict resolution in northern Kenya. I was telling my friend, Paula, here that when communities, local communities, they want peace. There's no way the elephants live in peace. So that's what I'm saying, Mr. President. That all that has been made possible through the support of the US government, and in particular, through the USAID Kenya. Mr. President, we have a number of challenges, but I'll put them in terms of a kind request to you. 1. We'd appreciate the US government support to protect and conserve the remaining African elephants. I'm saying the remaining because we have lost many. You can help us in 3 ways. First and foremost is to crush demand and market. Mr. President. Not even reducing it. If we can, let's crush it once and for all. The Kenya government, the civil society, ourselves. And the local communities can only prevent poaching from the source, from being poached. But the markets and the demand, Mr. President, are far outside our borders. We are helpless. Please help us. The other way you can help us protect and conserve the remaining African elephants, Mr. President, is to get the US government be a member of the African-led Elephants Protection Initiative. Currently, 9 African states have signed to it. So it would just bring enormous support and recognition if your government can join it and also be a part of it. Thirdly, in terms of helping us conserve and protect our elephants. The remaining, is to help us deal with the ivory. The second request that I think would benefit all of us here, Mr. President, my request also is that if possible we notice this is discussed all the time. But our humble request of the U. S government is to increase the international support for the international programs. And I have in mind I talk about the USA that's involved. And any other US government-related development agencies because it's from that pot that we are going to support conservation. That we can improve livelihoods, that we can support governance. I always have a feeling that the USAID office, wherever they are in Africa, and in the world, they get massive applications, and they can only deal with so much. Lastly, Mr. President, I must admit the fact that the embassy's office the USAID offices have been very good with us and extremely supportive. Thank you so much, Mr. President. President Obama, let me just say, first of all, Tom. You're an eloquent spokesman for your cause, and that was an excellent presentation. The second thing I have to say is that everybody is going to have to be briefer than Tom. Just because I want to make sure that I get as many comments as possible. The third point is, with respect to conservation. You said the elephants that have been lost, 20,000 elephants have been lost in recent years. And part of the reason why civil society has to be mobilized around conservation is that if people have a choice, if they see a false choice between their own livelihoods and conserving animals, then the animals will lose. If they're organized so that they see that preservation and conservation enhances their lives. Then we win, because they feel ownership and they will participate. And that's why the organizations that you're putting together are so important. Now, we've got another person just on this issue before we move to another issue, politice, right here. I could tell because she's got an armband that says, "Hands off our elephants." With the Wildlife Trust. MS. Kahumview, thank you, Mr. President. First, on behalf of all the conservation community. And there are several people in the room, thank you so. Much for your initiatives on the African elephant in particular. More than 30,000 elephants. President Obama, 30,000. MS. Kahumview, are being killed every year in Africa. That's one every 15 minutes. You're Grandchildren elephants. I love elephants. I want the whole world to fall in love with elephants. And I started this campaign, Hands Off Our Elephants, under the organization, Wildlife Direct. With the First Lady Margaret Kenyatta, to empower and mobilize Kenyans. Africans across the entire continent to save elephants. They are our heritage. They are our identity. And it's our duty. And it's not just Africans who benefit from this. The whole world benefits. It's not been easy, but our work has really led to a change in the hearts and minds of Kenyans, and also the laws. We've been at the center of judicial reforms in this country. Our work has led to the arrest of one of the most what do I say notorious suspected ivory kingpins. Faisal Mohammed Ali. For the first time in Kenya, an ivory trafficker is behind bars. And that's thanks to support from your embassy, through Ambassador Godek, and many other organizations. And while we're succeeding locally in Kenya, poaching is down. The problem across Africa is escalating, and the demand for ivory is actually exploding. We're dealing with a wildlife crisis alone. We're dealing with international wildlife crime. And that's why my organization goes after traffickers. We're dealing with people who are funding terrorism, and we're dealing with a crime that is fueled by corruption. So we have two requests. The first is that you take this message back to the American people. We're often asked, How can we help? It's very simple. Tell the American people, don't buy ivory. It's the simplest way to help. Secondly, we request that the USA takes a lead in pursuing international wildlife. Traffickers with the same vigor and rigor that you apply to money laundering and drug crimes. And we believe that this can be done through strengthening your legal assistance. Role not just in the demand countries, but source countries and transit countries. Because we know that the number of people involved in this crime is actually relatively small compared to those other crimes. And so we can crush this very quickly and end the war and save elephants for all of humanity. Thank you. President Obama, thank you. Well, as you may have noted, yesterday one of our announcements was to be even stricter with respect to any ivory sales inside the United States. I mean, we really are cracking down on that. And with respect to the international networks, you're absolutely right that there's a connection between corrupt officials getting paid, criminals being armed, and the ivory trade. You have this linkage that should be of concern to all of us. And it's international in scope. Most recently, the United States is involved in negotiations with the Asian countries. The Asia-Pacific region, something called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. One of the things we're trying to accomplish in the trade agreement is for many of these countries with still strong demand for ivory to start getting much more serious about the enforcement of their laws. and have it embedded in the trade agreements that we initiate. So, hopefully, we'll be able to influence not just what happens in the United States. But also in some of the areas where the demand is heaviest. Another topic where we've seen some progress, and this is something that's close to my heart because I've got 2 daughters. And close to Michelle's heart, she's been involved internationally. Trying to highlight the issue of girls' education with what we're calling the Let Girls Learn. Initiative that involves many of our international agencies is the issue of girls' education. Obviously, I've made it a big emphasis in my speech here today. So we've got a couple of people to talk about some of the work that's being done through civil society on this issue. And I'm going to start with Kennedy Adid of Shining Hope for Communities. Mr. Adid, Mr. President, it's my pleasure and privilege to meet someone like you who believes in grassroots change. You and I, we share one background that you did social. Work in Chicago, and I'm doing it in Cairo where I grew up. I grew up whereby it's really hard to make it. There's no hope. No dream. Many young men end up being go to crime. It's easy for them if they're not able to enjoy even tourism because they don't have a dream. There's no hope in them. Mr. President, I was really having a hard time in my community, but we said, enough is enough, and, yes, we can. We came together with a soccer ball, and that became a movement that really circled around girls' education. We built the first school in Kibera called Kibera School for Girls, and then started providing social services to men, too. And that became world-changing.